Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Drak Vlogs for E3 2018. So, last time we took on Square Enix's half-hour showcase that seems to have upset a number of people, but it's time for us to take on the next conference that was up on the chopping block, and that was the Ubisoft press conference for 2018. And like I've done with the past iterations, we're going to go over what I thought was a good decision, what I thought was a bad decision, and then overall grade it for you guys. So let's go ahead and start things off with what bad decisions were made. And for Ubisoft, that's actually going to be pretty long. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I thought the opening segment for Ubisoft was completely stupid. The Just Dance stuff just keeps getting stupider every year. I'm not interested in it. I know why they do it that way, because the Just Dance fans love it. But to me, it was pretty underwhelming and got annoying after a while. So not really on board with that, at least as far as I'm concerned. The next one that irritated me was Rainbow Six Siege, and it's simply because it was more of a pat on the back point for Rainbow Six Siege than it was highlighting anything new that was coming to the game. And look, I'm not knocking Rainbow Six Siege before people jump on me in the comments. The esports stuff is cool. I like the fact when games are doing well enough to get a spotlight in esports and all that. And in fact, they're actually getting a documentary featuring 8 separate team players from esports teams on Rainbow Six Siege. So there you go. Actually, I was fairly impressed by that, but overall was thinking it was an overall bad move to include Rainbow Six Siege in their press conference, because they didn't really have anything to add there aside from, oh, look, we're doing esports. The next one was Trials. So people might remember I did a review way back when for Trials of the Blood Dragon. Okay. I stand by what I said in that review, but the Trials series in and of itself has never been something that brings me in. It deals a lot with, motocross bikes and things like that. Not really all that interested. So I know that was awesome for Trials fans to be able to get that, but they didn't really add anything to me on the matter. I also thought the intro for it was pretty dumb, considering that I'm pretty sure it was rigged. I haven't seen testimony saying that it wasn't, and if there is any, you guys can let me know. But the creator of Trials came out looking like Evel Knievel, and we thought, he was just going to kind of race around the arena in the motocross bike that he was on. And instead, what they decided to have him do was they had like a monitor display, or like a little display kiosk put up on the show floor. Or not the show floor, on the stage, and he tripped into it and broke it. And I'm just kind of sitting there going, was that really necessary for Trials? I mean, I'm glad that you get to do that. It was kind of dumb to me, but they did announce the new game Trials Rising, so you guys are going to be awesome for that. And I also did one minor thing about that is that they were collaborating with a lot of the Trials YouTubers to try and make this game as good as it is. That's a good decision as far as I'm concerned. Overall, just wasn't impressed with Trials. The next one disappointing was The Division 2. Again, I'm not interested in the Tom Clancy games in the slightest, and frankly, The Division 2, I think we pretty much got everything we needed out of the, it was the Xbox conference's reveal. We got more out of that, in my opinion, than we did for The Division 2's reveal at Ubisoft. So that was kind of not worth it. I actually think you got more information out of the Xbox conference's Division 2 coverage than you did on the Ubisoft floor, and that shouldn't be the case as far as I'm concerned. Like, the company owns it, so they can show even more. They could show some Easter eggs and whatnot, and they didn't really do that in their presentation for the Division 2. They did, well, I guess the one thing that they did show out of it was that all of their patched content for the Division 2 is going to be free. That's cool. But actually, you know what? I don't even know if the original Division did that. I think they did to improve things for overall player life for it, but you guys will have to clarify that on for me. So I'll be honest, I was bored in the middle of the Tom Clancy stuff. Okay, the next bad one. Again, probably good for some people, but I've seen a lot of, like, I've talked to a few people as well as seen some reception for it, and it's still kind of negative, and that is for Skull and Bones, which is basically Assassin's Creed ship combat, the game. Okay, but it's got a pirate theme and motif to it. So, I mean, we got a full-on big reveal on it, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I had to deal with some stuff with my daughter at that point, and was happy to walk away, because as cool as Skull and Bones looks, it's still based on the Assassin's Creed ship combat, which I've not been a fan of. Like, I've only played a little bit of it in 4, and I've played it in 3, and I'm not a fan of the mechanics. I know that a lot of people are, but it was not engaging to me. I like the fact that you can improve your ships, and you can put some really odd and awesome things on your ships, but it didn't bring me in to say, go and try this thing out. And even then, like, we still got a 2019 release date for it, which tells me they're still working hard on it. The other thing, too, that was a little bit of a nitpick throughout the whole conference, they had mic issues left and right. I don't even want to say the other conferences had that much problems. I think EA had 1 or 2, and maybe Sony had 1 or 2, but Ubisoft had them all the time, so much so that you actually heard a couple of developers when they got to the back complaining about the schedule at E3. Okay, so that was ridiculous. Ubisoft, fix your damn mics, fix that problem, fix that shit. Okay, that's stuff you don't want to have happen in your holiday reveals, and it doesn't hurt. It actually hurts the overall process. Up next was For Honor and disappointments. Okay, the trailer, I'm just going to be honest, looked kind of dumb. I liked the reveal at the end, but for the most part, it was kind of dumb. Or the trailer before the reveal trailer was dumb, where you had the one female knight walking past the battlefield. I was just like sitting there going, ugh, the entire time. So they did announce an expansion, which is called Marching Fire. It's going to include brand new units. A brand new faction is going to be added into it, which is basically Chinese soldiers. And in fact, they're going to add 4 already, and they're going to add in a feature that people have been screaming for a while, which is 4v4 PvP. So they're finally going to add that in with Marching... Actually, no, I think that's getting added in first, and then they're going to add in Marching Fire later this year in October. So you guys can check that out. But For Honor, aside from that, didn't really have too many updates aside from Marching Fire's coming. The next one that was disappointing, at least to me, was The Crew 2. Because again, like they announced an open beta, and I get that that's cool for everybody, but one of the cool things that made Crew 2 look good last year for me was the multiple vehicles and the fact that they were going to utilize them. Now it's actually getting to a point where they're adding in so many vehicles, it's getting kind of ridiculous. And so at that point, like, I literally looked at it and went, okay, so you can have jet skis, you can have jets, I think at one point they were talking about like drones or whatever for it in commentary. And I'm just kind of sitting there going, well, that's great and all, but I'm only ever going to play with the cars because that's all I'm ever interested in those kinds of games. So it's great and all that you integrate them, but yeah, this is just not the game for me. And then finally, I'm going to overall call this a disappointment because I don't necessarily like the direction, was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was basically like the last thing that they covered. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is basically taking Assassin's Creed to Greece, where last year in Origins, we went to Egypt, okay? So I know that one of the main reasons for Origins was to incorporate a lot of mythology to it. It looks like they're kind of doing that here with Odyssey, but not really. They're more integrating Spartan lore than they are actually integrating, Zeus or any of that stuff. I don't know if it's just because they've already kind of integrated those in their story that's already kind of done, but that's how they decided to do it. And there are a couple of things that made me a little frustrated with it. I'm not too keen on a lot of the additions that came in with Origins, which were more RPG elements. I even made a comment in my notes just going, who sprinkled RPG over my action game? Because I get that that's interesting for a lot of people, and you can have a lot of really cool gear. And it's not like they haven't done this before, where they've integrated gear. I mean, they did that in Assassin's Creed 2. But they did it to a way that it wasn't so complicated. It was a lot more streamlined. And this one, they decided to just kind of go full-on RPG with it, and I wasn't entirely on board. I also kind of I'm not on board on the fact that it doesn't really look like a whole lot of mythology is being integrated into it. And I mean, Spartan lore is cool, but Spartan lore you got a lot of in God of War. Spartan lore you got a lot of in 300. Okay, so that's stuff that's been covered. It would have actually been cool to start looking at, you know, bringing in like the Greek pantheon in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that I want full-on Greek gods on camera, but it doesn't really look like you're getting anything of Greek religion at that time integrated into it. That was disappointing. One thing I thought was actually a good decision, but it could go either way, is the fact that you can either have a male or a female main hero. That's interesting, but I hope that the story is integrated in, like, the problem that can happen here is that in order to integrate both a male and a female, you kind of have to go a little bit more generic in creating that character. As long as it has a worthwhile arc, I will care nonetheless. I'm all right with it. But one of the reasons I like what they did with Origins is that they had already integrated a ton of backstory to that character and made it all work. When you integrate multiple genders or create a character, you have to go a lot more generic, a lot more bland, to be able to make it all work for how people want to play those OCs. And that can be a great thing, but it can also be a bad thing in the wrong hands. So I thought it was a good decision, but overall, it could go badly if it's not done right. And so it's just more like beware at this point. The gameplay demos, I mean, it didn't look bad by any stretch, but I just don't even know if I'm into Assassin's Creed anymore, to be perfectly honest. Like, I haven't played all too much of Origins, but I don't remember it bringing me in. 4 really hasn't brought me in from what I've played of it. I don't even know if Unity or Liberation, I think, was the next one after that, and then Origins, and now Odyssey are all kind of falling flat to me, and that's disappointing, at least a little bit. But that's all the negatives for the Ubisoft conference. What did they do right? Okay. First of all, Beyond Good and Evil 2 at the forefront of the conference because people were screaming for that. And that was a good decision as far as I'm concerned. They had a kick-ass trailer with an interesting reveal that I didn't understand whatsoever, but everybody that I've talked to that are Beyond Good and Evil fans have told me it's a good thing. So I'm okay with it. I actually like the idea that we got to meet all of the various major crew members on the ship that you're going to be spending a lot of time on. We'd already met the monkey guy, who I think is kind of the tactical officer. Then we got to meet the cook, who apparently is from the original Beyond Good and Evil. Cool. We got a ship's doctor. We got basically got a crew showcase for it. And then ultimately the reveal is, I think what they're trying to say is it's the person from the previous game, but I'm not sure. Beyond Good and Evil fans, feel free to clarify on it. But it is actually, and this is where it gets weirder too, I think it's confirmed a prequel. So Beyond Good and Evil 2 will be set before the first game, supposedly towards the first game's main character's mother, is what I think some people were saying in chat and whatnot, but I don't know Beyond Good and Evil. I have every intention of picking up the game just to get myself caught up, but I don't know that plot, so you guys are more than welcome to kind of clarify on it. Still looked cool, though, and the gameplay demo that they were able to show at least a little bit of looked pretty good. And the other thing that I thought was an awesome aspect was that they had an open invitation via a company called Hit Record, run by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, to have creators add content to the game. So basically, while collaborating with Hit Record, people will be able to make art assets for it. People will be able to make art assets, audio assets. I think they said that they would do it. I think you could even get videos. And you could work through Joseph Gordon-Levitt's company, Hit Record, to be able to get that into Beyond Good and Evil 2. That was actually a really cool thing, because I would love to see what the Beyond Good and Evil community provides to a game that they've been waiting many years for. So I look forward to seeing what they do with it, but the trailer overall looked badass. Like, if I can't even compare the previous trailer last year to this one. They both did what they needed to do, and I'm not a fan yet, but it definitely got the hype train going in my head again to go and get Beyond Good and Evil on PS4. I think it's still on the PS3 store, and just try it out, kind of thing. Just get my hands on it and see what I think. The next positive thing that I think it's positive, but I could see it going either way, in all honesty. Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. People remember my review for it, and I stand by it. I still have actually been able to get some level of enjoyment out of that game after doing the review. The problem is that given the type of game, you have to kind of be in the mood for it. But I have since been playing Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle since then, just off and on. And so their announcement was to include DLC for it involving Donkey Kong. So basically kind of giving Donkey Kong Country-esque maps, as well as having Donkey Kong Country characters being able to show up in Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, including like actually having really cool variations of the Rabbids kind of mimicking Donkey Kong villains, including bringing back Rabbid Donkey Kong, which I thought was actually a fairly good design. So at that point, I thought that was a really cool idea. And in fact, to make that even better, they brought out Grant Kirkhope to officially do the music for the trailer reveal. That was another awesome addition. And it's coming out June 26th, so people can get their hands on it very, very, very soon. I thought that was also a good idea, considering that Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle has already had 6+ months where people have made their way through it and had really no reason to go back. But now you do. If you're a Donkey Kong fan, you want to go back for it. Next good decision that was made. Transference. I am not a big guy for VR games, but this is one of those games that I'm trying to remember if I think it was shown at Ubisoft, and I think it was shown at either Sony or Microsoft's VR showcases. This looked good. It looked haunting. It looked freaking scary. And it was one of those games that actually legitimately made me think, oh man, it's kind of sucky that I don't have a VR headset. And the main reason being is that it's so it's a really great and designed cerebral horror game. The thing I didn't know about was the people making Transference. The company is headed by Elijah Wood. That was actually surprising to me. And this is another thing that happened that was negative too. They had teleprompter problems as well. And that's not good. But, I mean, it looks really, really good. But again, it's VR. So I don't know if I will cross that VR threshold just for one game. That's the thing. But Transference looked really, really good and hyped their VR efforts. The next one was another major step in the right direction. Starlink, Battle for Atlas. This is the game that I talked about, I think, last year, where you have customizable ships and their additions to the controller so you can play them out. So they were able to showcase that, and that it was going to be launching this October. But as an addition, because Starlink made its announcement for the Nintendo Switch, they had additional incentive to buy it for Switch. And that was simply Star Fox DLC and story content for Starlink Battle for Atlas. That was a good move. You can play as Star Fox in Starlink Battle for Atlas, Nintendo Switch only. And I guess it actually goes into, somebody was trying to explain in one of the commentary stages of, they actually had considered a R-Wing amiibo, but they decided against it because a lot of the angles would have been too sharp and they were worried about them hurting kids. And so instead they gave it over to Starlink, and Starlink created a customizable R-Wing that is usable in Starlink. That's cool. I actually like that idea, and Star Fox fans rejoice. He's got some lasting power, at least on Starlink, so it's not necessarily like you're playing an entirely different game. I mean, that's what Starlink is. So the Star Fox DLC was, I think, a good decision and is going to sell that especially for Nintendo Switch. Because I mean, that already got me interested in only getting it for Switch for the R-Wing. I really wanted to do that. I also did like the fact that they brought out Shigeru Miyamoto again. He had been brought out last year for Mario Rabbids. But this time they decided to give him a gift, and that was the original prototype for the R-Wing Starlink controller thing. That was actually really cool as far as I'm concerned, and you could even tell like Miyamoto-san wasn't even expecting it. So that was a good decision as far as I'm concerned. And that was pretty much the positives for me. So final grade for Ubisoft. Here's the thing. Ubisoft conferences are generally very boring, but, and this is no exception. But there were a couple of moments that still kept me fairly interested and didn't frustrate me in the slightest. But the sad reality is, with all of the other issues that were happening during their conference, it detracted from it. And so I have to put it right down with EA, where, EA was frustrating in its own way. Ubisoft also was in their own way, and it's a D effort as far as I'm concerned. And again, like the EA conference, I'm strongly considering whether or not to even watch the Ubisoft conference next year either. We'll see what happens. I'll debate it over the next year, but that's going to go ahead and do it for my coverage of the Ubisoft conference, an overall D effort as far as I'm concerned. When we come back, we will tackle the final conference for Monday, and finally on to the other two console makers as we tackle the PlayStation conference. We'll see you then.